Hare Krishna. The Nectar of Devotion by Srila Rupa Goswami, translated by Srila Prabhupada. Chapter 4. Devotional Service Surpasses All Liberation. How much a devotee is seriously attached to the devotional service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead can be understood from the statement of Mahārāj Pṛthu, Ādirāja, which is described in Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, 4th Canto, 20th chapter, verse 24. He prays to the Supreme Personality of Godhead thus: My dear Lord, if after taking liberation I have no chance of hearing the glories of your Lordship, glories chanted by the pure devotees from the core of their hearts in praise of your lotus feet, and if I have no chance for this honey of transcendental bliss, then I shall never ask for liberation or this so-called spiritual emancipation. I shall simply always pray unto your Lordship that you may give me millions of tongues and millions of ears so that I can constantly chant and hear of your transcendental glories. The impersonalists desire to merge into the existence of the Supreme, but without keeping their individuality, they have no chance of hearing and chanting the glories of the Supreme Lord. Because they have no idea of the transcendental form of the Supreme Lord, there is no chance of their chanting and hearing of his transcendental activities. In other words, unless one is already beyond liberation, one cannot relish the transcendental glories of the Lord, nor can one understand the transcendental form of the Lord. A similar statement is found in Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, 5th Canto, 14th chapter, verse 44. Shukadeva Goswami addresses Parikshit Mahārāj there, and says, The great soul King Bharata was so much attached to the service of the lotus feet of Krishna that he very easily gave up his lordship over the earthly planet and his affection for his children, society, friends, royal opulence, and beautiful wife. He was so very lucky that the goddess of fortune was pleased to offer him all kinds of material concessions, but he never accepted any of these material opulences. Shukadeva Goswami praises this behavior of King Bharata very highly. He says, any person whose heart is attracted by the transcendental qualities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Madhusudana, does not care even for that liberation which is aspired to by many great sages, what to speak of material opulences. In the Bhagavatam, 6th Canto, 11th chapter, verse 25, there is a similar statement by Vritrasura, who addresses the Lord as follows: My dear Lord, by leaving your transcendental service, I may be promoted to the planet called Dhruvaloka, the pole star, or I may gain lordship over all the planetary systems of the universe. But I do not aspire to this, nor do I wish the mystic perfections of yoga practice, nor do I aspire to spiritual emancipation. All I wish for, my Lord, is your association and transcendental service eternally. This statement is confirmed by Lord Shiva in Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, 6th Canto, 17th chapter, verse 28, wherein Lord Shiva addresses Sati thus: My dear Sati, persons who are devoted to Narayana, Krishna, are not afraid of anything. If they are elevated to the higher planetary systems, or if they get liberation from material contamination, or if they are pushed down to a hellish condition of life, or in fact in any situation whatever, they are not afraid of anything. Simply because they have taken shelter of the lotus feet of Narayan. For them, any position in the material world is as good as any other. There is a similar statement by Indra, the king of heaven, in Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, 6th Canto, 18th chapter, verse 74. There, Indra addresses Mother Diti in this manner: My dear mother, persons who have given up all kinds of desire and are simply engaged in devotional service to the Lord know what is actually their self-interest. Such persons are actually serving their self-interests and are considered first-class experts in the matter of advancing to the perfectional stage of life. In the 7th Canto of the Bhagavatam, 6th chapter, verse 25, Mahārāj Pṛthu says, My dear friends born into atheistic families, if you can please the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, then there is nothing more rare in this world. In other words, if the Supreme Lord Krishna is pleased with you, then any desire you may have within the core of your heart can be fulfilled without any doubt. As such, what is the use of elevating yourself by the results of fruitive activities, which are automatically achieved in all events by the modes of material nature? And what is the use for you of spiritual emancipation or liberation from material bondage? If you are always engaged in chanting the glories of the Supreme Lord, and always relishing the nectar of the lotus feet of the Lord, then there is no necessity for any of these. By this statement of Prahlad Mahārāj, it is clearly understood that one who takes pleasure in chanting and hearing the transcendental glories of the Lord has already surpassed all kinds of material benedictions, including the results of pious fruitive activities, sacrifices, and even liberation from material bondage. Similarly, in the same 7th Canto, 8th chapter, verse 42, when the demigods are offering prayers to Lord Nrsimha, Indra, the king of heaven, says, O Supreme One, these demons talk of our share of participation in the performances of ritualistic sacrifice, but simply by your appearance as Lord Nrsimha-Dev, you have saved us from terrible fears. Actually, our shares in the sacrificial performances are due to you only, because you are the supreme enjoyer of all sacrifices. You are the supersoul of every living entity, and therefore you are the actual owner of everything. Long were our hearts always filled with fear of this demon Hiranyakashipu, but you are so kind towards us that by killing him you have removed that fear from within our hearts, and have given us the chance to place your Lordship within our hearts again. For persons who are engaged in the transcendental loving service of your Lordship, all the opulences which were taken away from us by the demons are counted as nothing. Devotees do not even care for liberation, what to speak of these material opulences. Actually, we are not enjoyers of the fruits of sacrifices. Our only duty is to be always engaged in your service, for you are the enjoyer of everything. The purport of this statement by Indra is that beginning from Brahma down to the insignificant ant, no living entities are meant for enjoying the material opulences. They are simply meant for offering everything to the Supreme Proprietor, the Personality of Godhead. By doing so, they automatically enjoy the benefit. The example can be cited again of the different parts of the body, collecting foodstuffs and offering them, cooking them, so that ultimately a meal may be offered to the stomach. After it has gone to the stomach, all the parts of the body equally enjoy the benefit of the meal. So similarly, everyone's duty is to satisfy the Supreme Lord, and then automatically everyone will become satisfied. Just a quick comment here. This example that he's referring to is that the hand does not try to eat the food. The hands or the feet, they don't attempt to relish the food. They gather the food, or they go here and there to collect the food, and then they cook the food, and then they offer everything to the stomach, through the mouth. And then they get the benefit. So similarly, the demigods, they're saying that normally the demigods are considered participants or receivers or enjoyers of some portion of the fruits of sacrifice, sacrifices that are offered to Lord Vishnu through the Vedic sacrifices. But actually, the demigods simply serve to collect all of these sacrifices and offer them to the Lord. Because when, just as food is offered to the stomach, it nourishes all parts of the body. Similarly, when sacrifices are offered to Vishnu or Yajna, then all the living entities are satisfied. Therefore, instead of making sacrifices to the demigods, one should make them directly to the Lord himself. And that way all the demigods are automatically satisfied. A similar verse is found in the 8th canto, 3rd chapter of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, verse 20. Gajendra says there, "My dear Lord, I have no experience of the transcendental bliss derived from your devotional service,